Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really glad to welcome today to the InnovaBuzz podcast and excited to have all the way from Tel Aviv in Israel, Kobi Leizerovich, who's the Director of Partnerships for Asia Pacific at Namagoo, the world's first digital continuity platform. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Kobi. It's a real privilege to have you as my guest.
Thank you, Jürgen. It's a real privilege for me to be here as a guest.
Now, I noticed on the homepage of Namagoo, the catch cry or the kind of tag there is make your journeys unstoppable, and that each customer is on their own journey, so deliver it to them. And that really resonated with me immediately when I read that. I thought that's brilliant that you're looking at every customer with their individual customer journey and starting off by understanding that. So I'm looking forward to digging into all of that and how Namagoo does that, how it helps with that. Before we do that, what's the impact you're making in the world, Kobi?
Sure. So my position in the company is that I am the Director of Partnerships and Sales for the APAC region. Of course, we do focus on specific territories within APAC. Among them, definitely Australia, New Zealand, India, Japan, South Korea, and so on and so forth. So there are additional territories, but I guess I mentioned the main ones with that regards. So since I've joined the company around a year ago, actually, I have joined to open up the APAC market for Namagoo. And I've been quite busy in building the infrastructure and specifically focusing on allocating, searching for very valuable partnerships with a very strong focus on resellers, the sorts of companies, the sorts of partners that can really help us to scale and penetrate the markets. So since I've joined, I was lucky enough to build at least the initial infrastructure for such partnerships and sign up quite a few partners across the different countries I've mentioned. And yeah, it's very exciting for me to really take something from scratch and build this, right? This is really what what makes me tick, so to say. Yeah, so that's essentially in a high level what I do in the company.
It's a fascinating model, and I'm just thinking back to my corporate world where I had lots of business responsibility in various different areas, but geographically, essentially the geographies that you've described. And in those days, it involved a lot of travel. Now, in the last few years, of course, travel, whether that's the intent or not, travel hasn't been that easy. So I like the idea of the model of partnerships. How did you go about identifying appropriate partners and then beginning those conversations?
Right. So that's a great question. Also, I guess speaking to the point where you have mentioned that things have really changed since COVID. I think just about up until March 2020, I used to, for the 10 years prior, I used to fly like twice a month on average. So from that to what happened since March 2020, which is no business travel for almost 2 years. I just came back to business travel a couple of months ago, right? I had like the first two business trips like a couple of months ago, and hopefully this will still be the case in the next following weeks. But with that regards, one of the things, and I think it's a challenge in every I would say in every situation, not only during COVID, but I think during COVID it's even gotten more challenging to understand who is really a potential partner. So I think one of the things that we're doing, we're really trying to focus ourselves on partners that are able to drive the sorts of products we have to offer to the market, right? So definitely we have our natural partners. So looking at the line of business we have, which is very focused on helping e-commerce companies to scale, to boost their performance, our natural partners going to be e-commerce agencies, performance improvement agencies, and so on and so forth. But I think it's not as easy as that, right? Because there are additional partners out there, and I can tell you that there currently I have an excellent partner that is really helping us to scale and have generated the very massive pipeline, and they're not necessarily coming from this background, right? So you're going to have your system integrators, you're going to have your GSIs, the global system integrators, which are some of them we are working with, like Infosys and TCS and so on and so forth, which are very well known globally, definitely. But I think what really makes me understand who is a potential partner is how he's enthusiastic about our solution, right? I mean, definitely the way that I treat potential partners in the beginning as if they are customers, right? We go through the demo, I explain what is the added value we bring to the market. How can we help any customers they're going to be working with? If they can understand the idea and they can see the potential, and if they understand that this is something they can resell, I think that's the first parameter for a very potentially successful partnership. And of course, I mean, motivation is important, but also capabilities, right? Each partner is going to have a very different, I would say, infrastructure, right? Some of our partners, as I've mentioned, are very big GSIs, which is, they are enormous companies, and we are just, I guess, a very small friction of their revenue. So that's obvious how that's going to run. It's longer processes, but once you succeed, you can really scale with these big companies. Some e-commerce agencies will have a lot of customers in place already, which are naturally potentially the customers we are looking for. So they have a very good market reach, and they have the account managers in place and pre-sales and everything basically you need to start the onboarding process. And some smaller companies will have the right connections, but not necessarily will have the right infrastructure in place to begin with. So it really depends. So the approach with each partner is different according to the infrastructure they have in place. But I think for me, although I have been in partnerships for a while now, the way I see myself, maybe as opposed to different directors of partnerships or partner account managers, I'm a sales first person, right? The way I see things is let's do robust processes of onboarding. Let's understand whether this is going to be beneficial for both of the parties. And in a way, I want to see results and I want to see them pretty fast, right? Otherwise, there is no sense of investing a lot of time and effort. So that's essentially how I understand if a potential partner is actually a good fit for us. Yeah.
So in some ways, you're acting out that philosophy of every partner is on their own journey and has their own unique skills and capabilities and infrastructure in place.
For sure. I think every partner is different, and there are very happy surprises once in a while, right? As I mentioned, we have a very, very strong partner in India, for example. So I have a personal relationship with them, even from previous companies. They are not big, but the way they can pivot within the local market is amazing. Like they have the right connections, the enormous pipeline we were able to build within less than a year is amazing, and it's actually very surprising. You would think that the size of this company would not be able to build such a pipeline and so fast, but actually. The way I see things at this point of time, us, Namogoo, being a startup, maybe not a very young startup, a pretty established startup, we are at this point around 300 employees. Most of them are based out of Israel, but we have our local offices in the US, UK, and so on and so forth. But we're still dynamic, right? It's still a startup. In a way, I'm looking I'm looking similarities with the partners we are working with. To put aside the GSIs, obviously we do want to work with them, and these are very, in a way, I would guess very big companies. They move slower, but then when you succeed big. I think the partners we are looking for, they share the same sentiment. They're robust, they want to move fast, they want to be very efficient with each other's time. So I think definitely, and this is where I see a lot of success, right? Resellers that are really there for the results, being very result oriented.
Yeah. All right. Well, give us a bit of a high-level snapshot then of what Namagoo does and what it brings to the table.
Sure.
For both the end client, the end user, as well as the partners.
Of course, I'll be happy to. So maybe just a little bit of background about Namogoo before we deep dive into understanding what do we do. So Namogoo is an Israeli-based startup that was established back in 2014 and by two Israeli founders. They are still very much involved. One of them is the CEO and the other one is the CTO. Both of them are very hands-on, which is a very, very good thing to have looking back at all my experience working for different startups. With that being said, actually, the way that we have started our journey, our own journey, was in a way very unique because while most of the startups, especially Israeli startups, will start their journey maybe locally, not necessarily locally, but with SMBs as customers, definitely SMBs, mid-market. Actually, Namogoo have started enterprise, right? From the beginning. Our first customer was Argos, which is a very big brand based out of the UK. And then the customers that followed, most of them were in the US. This is where we really started and really kind of merged into the market. Customers like JCPenney, H&M, Asics, Nike, and so on and so forth. So we actually work with a lot of customers since the beginning. So all the customers I've mentioned, by the way, are still customers for around 7 or 8 years. With the first product we launched, which was CHP. So in a moment, I'll touch point about the different products we have and the added values, of course. But then, a few years later, and really actually before COVID have hit the world back in 2020, the founders wanted to expand the product portfolio. So up until 2020, more or less, the company was a one product company, focusing on enterprise, focusing on the US, focusing on EMEA. Definitely, we have big customers in Europe, customers like Samsonite and Digigual and so on and so forth. But we understood that in order to really scale, it's not enough to work with the enterprises. You have to scale towards SMBs, mid-market on a higher volume. So this is when we came up to the market with a product back in 2020. And definitely COVID have kind of made everything much faster because what happened is we came out to the market with what we call IBP, which is intent-based promotions. And on the same time, what happened is that half of the world, or maybe most of the world, was in lockdowns, right? People stopped going into physical retail brick and mortar shops. Everybody, or the vast majority of people, especially in the Western world, moved their shopping experiences as a whole into the e-commerce domain, right? And you saw a crazy uprise of e-commerce companies, D2C companies. These are terms that were not really there 2 or 3 years ago, direct to consumer. It's not even B2C anymore. Of course, there are B2C companies yet. But like looking at certain countries like India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, you're seeing crazy numbers of companies just companies being established purely as e-commerce companies, and this scale happened in the last 2 years. And this is when we came out with IBP. So essentially, IBP is focused on helping e-commerce companies in every size, whether it's a small company as SMB, mid-market, upper tier mid-market, or enterprises, right? Even our big customers in the US are actually using IBP to strategize their promotion campaigns. So one of the challenges we see is, although everything is moving in a way, right? I think there is a place for both offline retail sales in the world and e-commerce, right? And you also see a mix of both, even for big companies. Like look at Nike. Nike is still, I believe, doing most of their sales in their physical shops, but also there is a lot of presence in their online shop, right? Levi's and so on and so forth. All these great companies. But you look at smaller companies which have a very significant presence online, only online, and you look at these big retail stores and how they promote themselves, right? And how they used to promote themselves back in the 80s, big billboards across malls, across highways, giving away blanket discounts, right? Promising 20, 30% off just for you to step into their store. This, generates traction, that's obvious. But it also generates challenges. Now, in the physical world, you don't have the benefit of having so much data, so much information, which you do have in the e-commerce world. You see e-commerce companies, in a way, importing the same sentiment as retail stores. So obviously, it's a different design. It's a banner, it's a pop-up, it's a website markdown. But the concept remains the same. They're giving away blanket discounts, regardless of the intention of each shopper, right? You're going to have your high intent shopper. He's going to buy anyway. Sometimes you're going to have an impulse shopper. He's not looking for a discount, but because of the way you're strategizing your discounts, not trying to understand, who is a high intent shopper, who is a low intent shopper, he's going to get it. So you end up giving away unnecessary discounts to high-intent shoppers, right? Which actually hurts your margins in a way, dilutes your brand name, right? And in a way, educates your shoppers to be waiting for these specific discounts. And the flip coin is and your also, low-intent. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, I think the corollary to that as well, and if you think of going back to that example of the billboard, and there's a discount, 20% discount coming to our store. That is, I guess it's a little bit of a lottery. If I happen to pass by that billboard and pay attention to it, then it's kind of like I win a 20% discount if I'm inclined to buy at that store. In the online space, it's actually a lot different than that. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is they offer discounts, and the classic one is winning new customers. So a 20% discount for new customers, and that's kind of a slap in the face for existing customers, that particularly if it's a subscription type product where there's an ongoing payment, and all of a sudden, like I've been supporting you as a business and I'm a customer for the last 5 years or however long, and you're giving new people a 20% discount, but I don't get that discount. So there's that as well, isn't there? It's which is speaks in some ways to that intent also.
For sure, that's another challenge, which is how you're performing your retention for returning customers, and not giving them the feeling that they are taking for granted, as opposed to customer acquisition, giving away certain discounts for new customers to acquire new customers. But that's, going back to this point, but you're going to have also your low intent shoppers. Think about when you're giving blanket discounts, right? You might be giving unnecessary discounts to your high intent shoppers, but on the same note, maybe that's not going to be enough for your low-intent shoppers, the ones that are actually interested to buy, but they feel they need a higher discount to convert, right? So that's the thing. So basically, what we are trying to do with our customers is to understand how we can help them with this challenge. And within the core of our system, we have what we call a machine learning algorithm. So it's an ML algorithm, without going into many technicalities, but we are able to collect very big loads of data of information. We are GDPR certified, so we do not collect any PII, whether we collect any cookies, which is a very big advantage today. Because there are many restrictions that are happening on rule-based engines, which is in a way have been around at least in the last 10 years, but they are heavily inclined into collecting cookies and personal information, which is starting to be very challenging. And I think the first ones that probably will ban it is going to be the European Union. So by design, we do not pose these challenges, right? We collect statistical data, and according to this data, we are able to make a prediction of the intent of each shopper. Going back to what you said in the beginning, what kind of pops into your eyes when you go into our website, how we personalize the journey for each shopper, for each customer, is by understanding, according to very big loads of data, what his intention is, right? What he is gonna buy, and what is the probability for him to buy, and what's the right discount for him, right? Think about a world where you and I will get the same content on Netflix, right? Which does not make sense. Like, we are used to being getting a special treatment and a kind of a personalized approach when we're going on certain platforms like Netflix, right? So that's basically what we're trying to do for these brands, right? We're trying to move them away from blanket discounts. We're trying to make them understand there's a lot of information they can actually leverage in the digital e-commerce world as opposed to the physical retail landscape. And to capitalize on that, to understand who are your high-intent shoppers, not give them any discount if they don't need it, to balance your discounting in the right way, where we're able eventually to improve the metrics of the customer, our customer, which is the e-commerce store. But at the same time, it's the win-win situation, right? They improve their metrics, the conversion rate preferably will go up, the discount averages will go down. You're not being regarded as to a wholesale brand, right? The brand will not dilute, but each customer will get what he needs in order to convert. So we're really trying to generate a situation where it's going to be a win-win situation. So in a way, this is our focus.
That's fascinating. And so you talked about data collection. It's anonymous, essentially. It's statistical. I'm curious, what's the step at a very high level, obviously? What's the step to then take that information and gain the insights that then inform the promotions and the offers that are made? And is that all automatic, or is there kind of do you manually then build the promotions or build the offers based on the information?
Sure. So the system is maybe to take a step back. I mean, what was the main motivation and our agenda when we built this system back in 2020? So definitely the main objectives are to help our customers to improve their performance, right? Based on predicting the intention of each shopper. But eventually we're able to show actual ROI, actual results, which are improvement of conversion rate. You create much more traction, discount average reduction of cart abandonments, and so on and so forth. Of course, it has a business sense behind it. But with that being said, what was in the back of our minds when we built it was to make it very marketeer focused, right? Keep it very non-technical, very easy for a marketeer to just go and launch a live campaign. And going back to your question, everything is automated in the system, right? You as a marketeer in any company, whether you're a CMO in a smaller company or a promotion strategist in a very big company, you don't need to have any technical background to launch a campaign. It really takes around 10 minutes. And from that point onwards, it's fully automated, right? We collect the data. So all the information is being harvested and analyzed by our machine learning, and then pushed to what we call our prediction engine, which is an AI essentially, right?
Yeah.
And this AI is able to make a decision in real time based on the analysis of the information. And this decision is going to manifest itself in a pop-up. But basically, it's going to be a personalized offer to each shopper. Some high-intent shoppers might not get any pop-up because we have analyzed them as high-intent shoppers. So they're going to buy anyway.
Because they're going to buy anyway, yeah.
Correct. And some of them will actually get a higher discount even before what was offered on the blanket discount before we have implemented our solution. But the point here is we are trying to uplift conversion rate, but on the same time, decrease discount averages. That's the way we basically roll with our solution.
And thinking of that, I guess, low intent purchaser that might get offered a higher discount rate than the typical blanket that would have been in place before. The long-term strategy there obviously is once they're a customer and once they're delighted by the product that they've had the opportunity then to experience, is that they're going to stay as a customer if it's a subscription service, or they're going to buy more if it's something like, well, Nike springs to mind, obviously, if they've bought some sneakers and they really had a great experience and liked the sneakers, well, then they'll be back next time and they won't necessarily need a big discount then because they're then higher intent purchases.
Correct. I think, and that's a good point, because one of the things we are doing differently than, I guess, in comparison to rule-based engines is you on a Sunday and you on a, I guess, Thursday you are the same person, but you have different intentions, right? Maybe when you are browsing the website on Sunday, you're just, checking the delivery details of a product you already bought. And you on a Thursday are actually thinking what's the next product you want to buy. So the offer that you're going to get might be different. On the same note, we are trying to move away from a situation which we call price distrust, right? I mean, as an example, when you go to the travel industry, like Expedia or I guess companies of that sort, there is, in a way, a very problematic notion of price, dynamic pricing, which it can change within a matter of 5 minutes, right? You get one price and then all of a sudden they tell you it's going up. So that's not how we operate, definitely. Whereas you can get different discounts on different days, but we have what we call price stickiness. If you have several sessions within the same day, right? I mean, and we see it all the time. We see customers, by the way, especially during specific events like Black Friday, Valentine's Day, they're not sure what they're going to buy. So until they actually purchase, there's a decision-making process for this returning customer that is returning on the same day several times, right? So what we want to prevent is a situation where within the same day he's going to get different coupon codes, different discounts. So we have price stickiness. So if the first time you got a certain coupon code and then you get a certain discount percentage, that's going to stick for the next 24 hours, right? So that's how we, in a way, trying to find the silver lining between giving different promotions to maybe same returning customers in different sessions, but still maintaining a kind of, the trust between the shopper and the website.
That's fascinating. It's a really fascinating implementation of machine learning and AI. And at the same time, what I love about it is it's still focused on that human experience and being really customized around the buying behavior of that person of the shopper.
Sure. I think one of the things we are trying to do, while, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are trying to help companies to move away from blanket discounts. But on the same note, we're also trying to help companies to understand that promotions are a good thing, right? There are many brands, especially I wouldn't say in the luxury world. I think luxury brands don't really like to discount. And while we do have different solutions within our portfolio that can be an excellent fit for them, I guess that's not the sweet spot. But premium brands, which are not necessarily luxury, but do have a considerably high price tag sometimes don't like the idea of being perceived as a promotion or discount heavy brands for obvious reasons. So they refrain from doing discounts. They only have like end of season discounts and so on and so forth. And what we are doing with these brands is in a way trying to change their perspective about promotions, because the reservations they have about promotions are the way that the old school promotions are being done, right? Not about how we are. Exactly, right? I mean, when I speak with e-commerce managers or CROs or VP sales of these brands, the first thing they tell me is, wow, you've built an amazing system, but we are not as much into promotions. So can we leverage the machine learning to different things? And one of the things we are trying to do is maybe to change their perspective and explain them, guys, I mean, I mean, instead of doing heavy discounts in the end of season, we can help you to clear your stock during the season and actually make more revenue, because we are able to personalize the promotion for each customer. It doesn't mean, by the way, that in the end of the day, you're going to be losing margins. And I think it is a challenge, but I think we see more and more companies understand that promotions are actually a good thing. And basically what we're trying to do is to put the shopper in the center, going back to what you've mentioned, right? We're trying to understand what is the offer that will make this shopper convert. And definitely if we'll give them 50% off, everybody will convert, or the vast majority of them. But that's not the point, right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding, what's the buying price for each customer.
Yeah, that's a really great strategy. And what I like about it and what you've just said there is it's actually a win-win for each customer as well as the brand. I mean, if I'm in a position of a big brand and thinking, well, I want to position myself as premium. I don't want to be seen as somebody that offers discounts at certain time of the year, heavy discounting, and people wait for that discount. So if I hang those discounts onto special events like Black Friday or end of season, if it's a fashion item, for example, end of season is always a relevant place to make sure that you're getting old stock moving. But to have high inventories at those times is actually very costly. And then to have to discount them heavily to move that inventory is also very costly. So to be able to actually keep that inventory moving right throughout the season, right throughout the year, regardless of those different times, and offer discounts based on intent to the purchasers, it means that I think everybody wins there.
For sure. And I think one of the keywords and one of the key points we are trying to convey as a messaging when we speak with every brand, not only premium brands, but maybe brands that came into a point where they already have a lot of logistical challenges, right? Deliveries and stock clearance challenges and so on and so forth. It's not only about the value we're giving, which can be quantified right there on the spot. Like, am I uplifting your conversion rate? Am I decreasing your discount averages, uplifting your RPV, and so on and so forth, which is obviously, the first points they want to see. But it's also the overhead, right? And overhead goes both ways. It's the overhead that the brand has, as you mentioned, with, holding all the stock for the whole season, as opposed to kind of letting it go through the season and not by the end of the season. But it's also about the efforts they put into strategizing their promotions, right? Every promotion needs a designer, and every promotion needs a promotion strategies, and you need the consultancy firm, the e-commerce agency to help you out with everything, and you need the statistical data and so on and so forth. And when you think about it, when you quantify this into a dollar amount, so to say, you get to a very high budget, by the way, whether what you're paying to your human resources, doing that, but also there are many costs, outsourcing and so on and so forth. And I think one of the things we're trying to emphasize is, you have, it's always going to be the way we see it. We don't have too much of a direct competition with regards to different brands which are doing similar things. This, I believe, what makes us unique. There are a lot of rule-based engines out there. We do see ourselves as one of the only, I don't think the only one today, probably there are several more, which are doing intent-based, but it's always DIY as opposed, either you want to buy it or you want to build it yourself. You can build it yourself, but it's going to be very costly. It's going to take you a very long time. And essentially the end result is not going to be necessarily a whole full-blown system as we can offer, right? Whereas we can take the overhead from you. You have everything you need. It's very non-technical. It takes literally 10 minutes to launch, and that's it, right? You can be focused on your growth, not on strategizing promotions, understanding how can you clear your stock and so on and so forth. So I think this is a really big focus for us as well. It's a very big part of the value, not only the quantifiable metrics that are out there immediately.
That is certainly very valuable to have that kind of almost a drop-in, customized, personalized experience for every single customer that you just fire up in 10 minutes based on the statistics that you've gathered and the machine learning that you've built.
By the way, one of the big advantages we present to our customers is the fact that although we do not, obviously because we are GDPR certified, we do not trend information between different customers. We can potentially have, even competitors within the same domain because, again, we do not trade any information between companies. But they do enjoy the fact that we are a very data-driven company. Today, we analyze more than 1.3 billion unique monthly sessions across around 1,000 customers we have worldwide, which is huge because even if you build it on your own, you're not going to have anything close to this network.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing, that sort of capacity.
Yeah, machine learning and statistical data is as good as their size. And I think that's another point where we are really trying to emphasize to our customers.
So do you have your own hardware that does all the processing?
That's a great question. So actually, we are a born in the cloud company, right? So we are cloud agnostic, or all of our databases and the CPUs. So it's kind of a split between AWS and Microsoft Azure. So we do not hold any physical hardware, but we do host all of our servers around Microsoft and AWS. And this obviously gives us an edge because we are working worldwide. So when we're working with an Indian-based customer, we can make sure that all the processing is happening physically close to the customer. So the performance is actually excellent. So I would say that we invest a lot of budget in our cloud cost to be very dynamic.
Yeah, that's probably easier to scale up the capacity to process lots of data quickly and as you said, do it globally than having your own hardware.
For sure.
All right, well, that's a really fascinating story and fascinating application of artificial intelligence and machine learning that I really love the fact that it's, well, first of all, it's a win-win for everybody, but it's personalized with the customer at the center. And really the customer experience journey unique to each individual customer. I think it's a good point now to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round. Sure. It's the same 5 questions I ask of every guest, and the idea being that you'll inspire our listener to go and do something awesome today as a result. Ready?
Yeah, let's go.
So what's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I think for me is to be very open-minded and to hear a lot of approaches and opinions. I think, um, you know, maybe in the past when you wanted to expand your vocabulary, right? You would have gone and read a lot of books
Yeah,
or more books. I think in the innovative world, basically you need to expose yourself to a lot of approaches, right? Whether it's ideas, technological ideas and solutions. A great way to do it is to go to conferences, is to listen to podcasts and so on and so forth. I think going into conferences became a little bit of a challenge in the last
yeah,
2 years. Happily now it's kind of coming back.
coming back.
Uh,
Yep,
s- yeah, so for me, it's really about explore new solutions, right? I think it gives me a lot of understanding about the possibilities out there. And think once you're getting this understanding that there's so many different approaches and really trying to stay there at the edge, you always have to learn new things because what I find is when you stop learning, you stop being innovative because
yeah,
when you focus on whatever you're doing, just on what you're doing, in a way, you can potentially miss the next big thing, right? A
that's right. Yeah,
company, a company always needs to be looking at the next few steps, not even one step. So for me, really stay innovative is to learn how new ideas and new technologies work, what's new out there in the world. And by the way, in different subsectors of the industry, not only
yeah,
about e-commerce, right? Whatever is happening on the cloud and the e-commerce, on the CPU processors and so on and so forth. Because in the end of the day, the industry is combined out of many,
that's
many
right.
different
Yeah,
things.
and we can abstract things that we learn in a different area and say, "Oh, how would that work in my particular field?"
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
So I think for me is really about understanding. When I come to a new company, and I think it's very common now in the world, also in Israel. I mean, the lifespan of an employee within a startup is around 2 years at best. So even me, like I've moved around. I've been working for bigger companies, smaller companies, but always when I come to a new company, I do tend to learn whatever was going on within the line of my responsibilities before I decide to make any changes. But I think for me is really understand what were the gaps and what different ways we can think about to succeed in places where things were I'd say less successful. For me, it's about a lot of brainstorming with people that I appreciate their opinion, right? Of how we can succeed. It's a lot of try and error. I really believe in try and error, and I think it's not about getting this right from the get-go. It's about trying different approaches and understand what works. And once you understand what works, putting your focus even more on what have worked as opposed to what did not work.
Yeah,
So I
so
think for me, sorry, go
running
ahead.
lots of experiments and
Yeah,
seeing, yeah,
yeah,
seeing
yeah,
what
for
you can
sure.
optimize and
Yeah.
yeah,
By the way, that's my sentiment when I'm trying to convince customers to take this initiative with our system, right? I tell them, I mean, guys, I mean, we have these case studies, but each company is different. The only way for you to understand how this is going to impact is to implement it and see how it's going to work. So this is a sentiment I take to
yeah,
many areas.
great. All right, do you have a favorite resource you use most often?
Oh, sorry, what was the question?
A favorite resource?
A resource. I think it's about, for me, it's not necessarily about, actually, when I think about it, it's not necessarily about technological tools. It's more about people you work with. So I think for me, I like to in every company I've worked, even in Namogoo, I like to really leverage the internal relationship I have with different stakeholders. And for me, the most important resource is the people I work with. To be honest, because I mean, different systems, different resources are very important, and they can help you to do your work. But with all the technology involved, I still think that to succeed, especially in sales and promoting different solutions within new markets, it takes. It's not a one-man show, right? It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about the partner. It's
working
about
with other people.
Many different people that help me along the way, whether it's support, whether it's R&D, product, and so on and so forth. So I always tend to find these key stakeholders that can help me leverage.
Yeah, there's a bit of a theme coming through in each of the answers you've given. That's sort of people focused, and it might be consistent with the whole philosophy behind the products.
Might be.
So when you're implementing the systems with the client, what's the best way to keep the project on track?
That's a great question, actually, and we are really actually focused and putting a lot of resources lately in understanding what's the best way to do it. And what I find is, and that's the sentiment I convey to every customer we sign up with, is it's not a one-time thing. It's not like we implement and that's it. You're not going to see us, and maybe we're going to speak with you next year for renewal. It's a process, right? Especially within the evaluation period. We're going to be doing a lot of try and error with you, right? We're going to run a certain promotion. We're going to see how this works. We're going to change a certain factor. We're going to see how it's going to impact the results and so on and so forth. So I think really being engaged with the customer, I think they really appreciate the fact that you are out there. We have built a CSM, a customer success team to make sure that every engagement we have with the customer is being really capitalized and successful. So for us, it's about engagements, really truly high quality engagements, and not about, signing a customer and moving on to the next. I think that's what makes a successful engagement for us. And to give you a quick example, we around 6 months ago we have signed a pretty big customer in India. Boat Lifestyle, they're pretty famous. They're founders in the Shark Tanks in India, so he's kind of a celebrity and so on and so forth. But I think at this point, after 6 months, it became more of a partnership than a customer-vendor relationship. And that's amazing. And eventually, that shows the results of a very good engagement.
Yeah, so lots of touch points and lots of, hand-holding in some ways in terms of the implementation and running those experiments. And I guess it's important to run a lot of that kind of experimentation inside that system to generate more data so that the machine learning can improve.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things which is posing a challenge for the customers even before we implement our system is attribution, right? They're working with so many tools. They're working with Google Analytics, and if they have an e-commerce platform like Shopify, Magento, and so on and so forth, different marketing automation tools. And obviously, every tool has its own benefits, but how do you attribute success to a certain tool, right? Because there are so many tools that are running simultaneously. One of the things we are helping them with is attribution. We have a way to understand whatever is happening on their website organically without the impact of our solution, as opposed to what is happening with the impact of our solution. So we always keep a control group. I wouldn't say it's exactly an A/B testing, but it's not far from it. So I think that really helps the customer to understand the impact that we're making, which in a way is something he is lacking with the other solutions he has on his stack. A lot of try and error, a lot of attribution, understanding how this specific change have impacted the metrics, and going back, I mean, we are a data-driven company, so we're really about the data. We're really about the information we can get, not only about the results.
Yeah, that's a really strong point, and I guess it's a key part of what differentiates you from some of the other e-commerce tools that people might be using. So speaking of differentiation, what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
I think, there is a very big buzz around kind of changing the rule of the game now, when a lot of, our potential customers we're speaking with are really trying to position themselves. As I said, I'm trying to learn from my customers as well. Obviously, they're trying to position themselves as brands which actually change the rules of the game. And I think, in a way, this is what we are trying to do. In comparison to different solutions in the market, I think, in a way, we're unique. We are not in a very saturated market. We do not compete with all the rule-based marketing automation systems, because we really leverage the intent machine learning, right? So really, to be successful, to have this edge, is to understand what are you doing differently, what are you bringing to the table, which is actually unique and different from any other vendor. And I think once you have this unique selling point, you need to capitalize on that, because that's also very hard, right? How do you prove it? How do you prove it? How do you show that whatever you are claiming is actually ROI driven? What's in it for me, right? That's the first question that the customer will ask. Okay, I mean, you're saying that you're unique, but what's in it for me? If you can show it, then I think this is the beginning of building a formula to success.
Yeah, great. That's a really important point there. Capitalize on your uniqueness, but do it from the perspective of what's in it for the potential customer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Kobi. This is fabulous. Now, where can people find out more about Namagoo and about you, and maybe even reach out and say thanks for what you've shared with us today?
Sure. So first of all, we have our own website, and on the website we have a lot of case studies, actually success stories with different customers, even customers we are already working with in Australia. In general, I think there is a lot of information that they can consume from the website. But if there is anybody that will be interested to understand more about the solution, I'll be happy. And of course, we can do it at a later point, to share my email. We can get in touch, and we'll be happy to demonstrate our solution to everyone that sees value in it. So, I mean, definitely, this is something that we're doing day in, day out.
Okay, well, we'll certainly have a link to the Namagoo website on the show notes, so people can check out those case studies you mentioned. And if they want to get in touch, we'll work out how we can get them in touch with you.
Excellent. Sounds perfect.
All right. Well, what action would you like the listener to take away from today's conversation?
Well, I think one of the main things I would like to take out from this conversation is the fact that, we're really trying, as a brand, we're really trying to help e-commerce, brands to move to the next step. And this is to be able to personalize the experience for each shopper, right? In a way that they can actually leverage all this digitalized world. And to understand that promotions are actually a good thing if they're controlled and balanced in the right way. So I think that's the main point I would like anyone that will listen to it and will find this relevant to take from this session in a high level.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think the idea of really understanding that unique customer journey that every potential customer is going through once they land on your webpage, whether that's an e-commerce site or not. I mean, there's usually a journey that people will go through, and what's their intent, to understand that, and to find out how can you learn from that and pull together the data that allows you to personalize the experience for each visitor.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I think the main few points here is really leveraging all of the information we can collect and understanding that in a way customers these times they expect you to personalize, right? They want you to make offers which are relevant specifically for them. Nobody wants to get a promotion which is not relevant. And
Yeah.
maybe as an example, when we are going to different websites, me personally, I like to buy on Chinese websites like AliExpress and so on and so forth. So, but sometimes you go to the website, I know exactly what I need. All of a sudden, I'm being bombarded with
Yeah.
one
With stuff
$1
that-
coupon, $2 coupon, and I don't need it. And actually, it makes me want to leave the website, not to buy. That's really the opposite of what we're doing, right? We are really trying to understand what's the best timing to give an offer, what's the best offer possibly we can give to every customer. And that's how we generate more traction, right? Not by banners that are visible to everyone. And that's how we prevent a situation where a brand will be perceived as a discount heavy brand. It's not visible for everyone. It's going to present itself to every shopper individually on a very different step on his journey, and the offer is going to be unique. So that's actually how we want to help brands to the next step.
Yeah, that's an excellent point too. And there's so many examples of that where I've actually physically been turned off a site where I've had a specific thing I wanted, and the purchase intent is I know what I want, I'll pay for it. I know what I want. As soon as there's an experience there, I can buy it there. That's easy. It's done. Where I've actually had an experience of saying, no, this is just feels wrong, or it's too difficult, or they're bombarding me with all this other stuff that's distracting me. I'm going to go elsewhere, and I've bought elsewhere. So
for sure. So we are really trying to make unstoppable journeys. That's the whole point. We want to remove distractions, personalize experiences, give customers what they're really looking for, and by doing that basically that's eventually brings better results. I think that's actually the bottom line.
Absolutely. All right. Well, finally, Kobi, who else should I get on the show and why?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess what I find really interesting is in general is artificial intelligence. I'm not sure about who, but I think what I really would like to hear about is more how we leverage artificial intelligence to personalize experiences, not only on e-commerce websites, but actually in a lot of things that we're doing online, whether it's not only shopping, but whether it's how we consume news, how we consume content, and so on and so forth. I think we came into a point where the content that is being given to us is overwhelming, right? A lot of it, there is a lot of information, and I guess anyway, that's what I feel. 95% of it is not relevant for me.
There's certainly a lot of noise in the online space, and I guess that's a fascinating topic. I'll have to do some research myself into what's out there and who's working in that space.
And I'd like to definitely hear that podcast, because I feel that this is one of the biggest challenges I am personally facing, and I'm sure that a lot of people will share with me the same sentiment. So leveraging AI to understand really how can you make content much more relevant in our days, which is overwhelming. I think that should be a very interesting idea.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights so generously with us today, Kobi. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and it's been interesting to learn about Namagoo's journey and philosophy and how the product works at a very high level. And as I said earlier, I'm really fascinated by this application of machine learning and artificial intelligence, particularly as it's so focused on the personalizing the customer experience and putting the customer in the center of their journey, of their very unique journey. So thanks for sharing all that with us. All the best for the future, and let's keep in touch.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me, and that was great. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thanks.